All right. Welcome, everyone. We are gathered together today to get through this thing called, no, that was something, a flashback from the 80s, I think. We're actually here to talk about all sorts of good stuff, primarily around the Torah portion and the class that we had, but don't feel restricted to that. One thing I wanted to say is that I'm glad that Seth kicked off this new piece. If I can finish a little bit early, he turned on all the mics in the Zoom call and just let people talk. I think that's great. So we're going to do that throughout this conversation, because those of you who are able to stick with it, we spend some Saturdays 2-3 hours. And it's, hear a person raise their hand there. But Seth said that maybe we can do periods where it's sort of an open mic where we can all just kind of have a conversation. And I think we can do that without a lot of chaos. I grew up in the 70s, and we used to go to the skating rink, and there was a time when it was all skate. It was kind of chaotic a little bit. Then they'd have just boys, then girls, and whatever else. So anyway, well, I don't know if that's a real good connection, but you get it. We'll have an all mics time open up every once in a while. So looks like Carolyn already has her hand raised, and let's see what Carolyn has for us. Hey, Carolyn. Let me do it. There you go.
Okay, there we go.
Yep.
I just wanted to tag on something to what James was saying, or Dr. Tabor was saying. My husband described what he was describing and what Richard Elliott Friedman is talking about in The Hidden Face of God.
Oh, yeah.
We are or can become a self-aware text. God said when he came down and the flood was fixing to happen, he said, the Tower of Babel, excuse me. If we don't stop them now, there's nothing that can be kept from them that they cannot imagine. So we as people reflect the image of God when we become self-aware and choose to be more godlike in our actions, in our thoughts, in everything that is us. We strive to become more godlike. And
Gotcha.
I think that sort of like goes along with what Dr. Tabor was saying. And that's all I wanted to say.
All right. Well, that's a good start. I know that you'll probably have some other things to jump in. And now, just to make sure, I think I got a note from you. I get quite a bit of email. Did you tell me that you did get the Torah tablets? Wait.
Yes, I did. And
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ross. I got
no
all four of
problem.
them.
No problem. I just wanted to make sure that they got there. Good deal. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Tabor, come on back up on the stage.
Hey there. So you can call me James. I'm not offended by that, Carolyn. Especially since I'm retired. I'm not the professor anymore. But Betty calls me Jimmy. So
Yeah.
sometimes. Yeah, I think the Hebrew Bible leaves us with the Jobian query. Many scholars are convinced that the beginning of Job and the end were maybe written later to smooth it out a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you just take the story itself, where it ends with nothing resolved except Job wishing that someday he would have a Goel who would stand, though his body turned to dust and so forth. It really does encapsulate something. I was just talking by text to Derek Lambert about this, and Derek's so-called skeptic and so forth, but there's a whole group of those people now in that group and it's becoming very popular, kind of like Christ mythicism, like Jesus didn't exist, or Paul's a Roman agent. At the other end is like the Hebrew Bible is Hellenistic and it's written late in the 3rd and 4th century BC. So I was telling him, I said, well, you just don't know much about Hellenistic religion. And I studied with Jonathan Z. Smith. And he made it very simple to all of us, and Morton Smith as well. You know the names, I'm sure, especially Morton Smith. And what he essentially said is there's a locative view and a utopian view. And the utopian view does start in the fourth century in the West. And what do you mean a utopian? It's to begin to think that humans don't belong on Earth, they belong in a better world, a world beyond, so that the real religious question is, how do I get saved?
Mm-hmm.
How do I get saved from death and from the world? And the world is dark and fallen, and humans are fallen. So Empedocles says he's actually 5th century. He says, he believed in reincarnation. And he says, I was once a bird, a fish, and a man. Okay. So he's, transmigrating his soul. And then as a man, he says, and I wept when I saw this dreadful place. I quote that all the time.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Robert Frost in his poem Birches. Remember, the boys go up on the tree and go to heaven, but the tree comes back down. It's called death. And then at the end of the poem, he says, the earth's the right place for love. I don't know where it's likely to go better.
Yeah.
So for years, I would quote, what's it all about, Alfie? Remember? You have to be an old timer. I see Valentine laughing. But then Lori said to me the other day, you need to listen again to Four Non-Blondes. Remember the music group, Four Non-Blondes? Look it up on YouTube. What's going on? Remember? I get up in the morning and I step out on the porch.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit high, and then that wonderful chorus, and I raise my hands and I say, oh, God. And then it's giving me chills because I just blasted it through the house because I was reminded of it with Derek. So I said, that cry of what's going on is not answered by, oh, well, we're actually here and this is the answer and this is the answer and there's going to be a judgment and there's heaven and hell and all. Where's that in the Hebrew Bible? So how could it be a book of faith? Because it trusts that the creator of all things loves us and is aware of us and is advancing a purpose that is probably beyond our possible imagination. But as far Abraham died, Moses died, talked about it today, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all die. And so what's going on is the cry of the Hebrew Bible, but it's a human cry and it's real. And I don't think it's a cry of despair, it's a cry of reality, because life is also wonderful and beautiful and lovely and amazing and horrible and ugly all together, right?
Yep.
We all know that. I mean, if you're above 12 years old, you begin to understand it's everything. But so what's going on? Well, the Hebrew Bible says what's going on is that we are challenged to begin to develop the character of the Creator that's described in, I think, 13 places. Merciful and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. So, so I think, to me, that stands out because what other religion do you know in the West or the East that doesn't give a package deal answer to the big questions of life? They all do, don't they? Islam. They're more into this world than the other world. That's why they glorify suicide and martyrs. Any religion that glorifies martyrs I would back off from.
Yeah.
It'd be a really
That's a good
thing
rule.
if you died. And you know that old Sunday school joke, I've told it 100 times, so forgive me if you heard me tell it before. It's I think a 5th grade class, and the teacher's teaching them all about heaven and Jesus died and we're all going to go to heaven when we die. She goes, how many of you kids want to go to heaven? You picture a whole class of kids going, I do. And one kid in the back, that would be me, doesn't raise his hand. And she says, well, Jimmy, you didn't raise your hand. He said, I thought you were getting a group to go right now.
Yeah.
Like the buses.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not the Hebrew Bible. Life, l'chaim, right? To life, choose life. Well, there's still death then. But there are hints that the human destiny has to be more than dust and ashes, right? And one of those hints is the tree of life in the midst of the garden that we don't have right now, but I mean, it's a hint. So I'm kind of satisfied with, I know the book of Daniel has resurrection and so forth, and that's certainly a possibility. But even then, notice those who sleep in the dust will awake. Isn't that interesting?
Yep.
They're in the dust. So it's not denying the Hebrew view. It's suggesting that it's a metaphor. They sleep and they awake. I love that metaphor.
I do too.
But if you start asking, like Paul was asking, well, what kind of a body? What are you even talking about? And then you got to say, how would you possibly know? Some of you mentioned algebra and calculus and all that. I'm terrible at math.
Me too.
My verbal scores were always in the 90s, and my math was in the 30s.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means about me, but
it means you're in the right job, Dr. Tabor. That's what it means.
I'm in the right job in terms of concepts. So
that's right.
So
I remember. Let me jump in. I remember.
Yeah.
You years ago. Some of our group aren't old enough to have been around you this long or haven't been involved this long. But the thing that I think put me on the course for today, there were two things. One was a work that you published way back. I got my hands on it probably at the end of the 80s. The very end, probably right after it came out. I got it from Andy Garza. I see Betty Elisheva's here. She introduced me to him, I think. So kind of a tight-knit
That's how
group.
we met. Yeah.
But anyway, Andy gave me a 48-page pamphlet called Restoring Abrahamic Faith. And I still have that. I carried it in my book bag forever. Now I have it as a PDF saved, and for, I don't know, a couple $1,000, I could get that out. I'm joking, but it was really very, very good. But I remember the other thing was a class you taught called The 5 Fundamental Flaws of Evangelical Christianity. Long title, but it was probably the single most important, I don't know, the most important thing I ever heard in my life. Probably even to this day, it was one of the best, but it was one of the old lectures from, I guess, in Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that you said in there, you were talking about resurrection, just in part of a point you were coming up with. And I remember you saying something to the effect that to some of the people that Paul was talking to, resurrection was the dumbest thing they had ever heard of. Because it just didn't, why we want to get out of here. We don't want to come back here. And so that kind of stuck with me, that one of the flaws that I'm getting to is one of the flaws was earth is not my home. Heaven is my home. And you really drilled that point home. I still think that those 5 points probably do capture, and you've incorporated that thinking into some of your later works. I know it's on every page in some way, but succinctly in a 1-hour lesson, that was one of the biggies for me.
There's a version of it on my YouTube channel that has a lot of views, so I guess it's catching on. I mean, it's way back 2 years ago. It's called The Bad Idea That Took Over the World.
Yeah. Is that's sort of a remake then of what you did?
Yeah, I don't number it 5, and I don't designate Christianity because I think it's broader. It took over the world. It's not, Muslims are totally into that.
Yeah.
But Forms of Judaism, not the more liberal, critical forms, but Orthodox Judaism, they've got it all worked out, especially if it's Kabbalistic,
Sure.
right? They got all reincarnation, everything, it's all worked out. Becomes a Hellenistic, I I say Hellenistic, people go, oh, that's not Greek. Well, you need to read Neoplatonism. It's a Jewish form of Neoplatonism.
Hmm.
But yeah, I am going to publish, maybe I'll publish a lot more books, but I only have one more in mind, and it's called Jesus Betrayed. And maybe I'll broaden that, but the idea now would be the five fundamental flaws that Jesus had a more Hebraic view of things. And it doesn't preclude life after death, but for me personally, I would go with Robert Frost's epilogue or epitaph, I'm sorry, epitaph that he put on his tombstone. It's so Jovian. I just wonder if he knew. And, it's also in Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening. Remember? The woods are lovely, dark, and deep. It's like, ooh, should I go into the woods? But I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep and miles to go before I sleep.
Yeah.
But on his tombstone, he put, I've had a lover's quarrel with the world. I love that. A lover's quarrel with the world. A lover. Now, he means lover, like passionate love,
Yeah.
but a quarrel, meaning we struggle. And again, for non-blondes, what's going on?
I'm going to have to look it up.
The answer is not nothing. Oh,
Yeah.
as soon as you hear the song, you'll know it.
Hmm.
Every one of you have heard it many times. It just has to come back to you.
Right. Good deal.
Okay, I've
Uh,
talked enough.
Betty, you had your hand up. You dropped it. You raised it. Okay. Hey, Betty.
Hey, Shabbat Shalom, y'all. Yeah, I did have my hand up, but I didn't want to seem like I was trying to butt in. So
No, you have to do that with James, and you have to do that with me. Otherwise, we'll
Well,
just keep going.
I know both of you pretty well, and I should know that by now, but I guess I don't.
Yeah.
Um, First of all, I want to know that song. I don't know the song. I mean, James, you say that everybody's heard it. Maybe I have, but I wish somebody would put it in the chat or something,
Yeah.
because that's kind of how I wake up every morning. Like, oh God, what's going on? What's going to happen today? And raise my hand, whatever it is that you want me to do or be or what. That's what I want.
Hineni.
But I still have so many questions, and I come back to the statement that Paul made that actually was not from him, an Athenian poet, I believe. In him we move and live and have our being.
Yeah.
And also, what does it say after that? And you're not very far from him.
He's not very far
like
from.
that. Yeah. So that reminds me of Jesus's words when he said, "The kingdom of God is within you." That you're not very far from the kingdom of God, and I think it's because it's within us, and that God consciousness that the Creator gives us, if we stay tuned, then truly every move that we make, every turn that we make, links us back to Him, and we go, aha, oh yeah, I see. I can see God here, and I can see God here, but yet it's bittersweet, because there's a lot of pain in this life, and a lot of hurt, and a lot of suffering. So we can either choose to be negative about all of that pain, or we can go for the joy, like the rainbow. I'm sure you all, I've written this, I think, in my book and talked about it, but I've always loved rainbows.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I love about the rainbow is that there wouldn't be this beautiful rainbow if it weren't for the rain. And so it comes after every rain when the sun shines through the raindrops, and it makes this beautiful, colorful hue all across, the whole sky, the whole horizon. And I think it's a message to us that that's how your life is going to be. It's full of beauty, but on the other hand, it's full of hurts and sorrows. But I'm within you, says our Creator, El Elyon, and I love that as well. I'm within you, and you're good. You're going to be okay because I'm there with you. I just firmly believe that. And if I didn't believe that, I don't think I would want to live another day.
I hear you.
Because that's my lifeline, I think.
I agree. I think life here now is so the potential for beauty, with the grandkids and relationships, and even in situations where we're lonely, because it's
Right.
it's not every day that we have someone, physically in our presence, but there's something about having contact with one another. By the way, my mother, I talked to her quite a bit, and she said that you two had a fabulous discussion the other
Oh my
day.
goodness, Ross, we talked about you up and down for about 3 hours.
Well, she told me that it was just so nice to, reconnect with, like you guys are friends or whatever, but to really connect and talk. And she said it just lifted her. And I know that you probably were lifted as I am anytime I talk to her.
It lifted me.
Yeah.
It did. Oh my gosh. And I had forgotten how much I love your mother. What happened is I was sending you a text or an email, I don't remember, to explain why I wasn't there last week. And when I was looking for your name, and I saw your name, and then right under your name, I have Ross Karen.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to call Karen. It's been forever, but I'm going to call her. She'll probably think I'm nuts.
No.
So, and I know she was surprised to hear from me, but we found out we have so much in common.
Yep.
Besides that we care about and love you. But and anyway, as it got to the point, I was telling her about our little grandson Joshua, and that it was his birthday last Shabbat. And she said that was your brother's birthday as well. That was Mark's birthday.
That's right. Both of those. So
that was kind of the beginning of the connection. But just a little bit about my trip to Houston last week. And that is that in Jewish tradition, we put rocks on graves rather than flowers. I mean, flowers die, and rocks are kind of a sign of more eternity, or as long as things. I mean, they last long. They're durable, endurable. So Kim had put a rock on Joshua's grave, and I did too. And before long, here comes this dragonfly and lights right on top of that rock. And you know who loved dragonflies? Joshua. He would get so excited, and I don't know why, he just would. And I mean, there's lots of stories about dragonflies, maybe some true, maybe not, but that they can kind of come at a time to like communicate with you after the person is gone. And I'm not sure what I even believe about that.
Right.
All I know is that Joshua loved them, and every time we go to his grave, there's always one or two or three. And this time, we thought there had to be at least three because they were flitting around so much. And then finally we realized, no, it's just like one. but the little dragonfly's personality was just like Joshua at 3.5, always flitting around, just always, always, always. And everything that everybody that he touched, he brought life to. And so his short little life was really beautiful. And so, yes, Saturday was a sad day in one sense, but it was also a very beautiful day. And I will hold that in my heart forever.
Well, I can tell you that just the fact that your accidental thinking of my mom, it really made her day too, because that was a very, on a day like that where you're thinking about a loved one who's passed. And look, my brother Mark, that was my mom's buddy. I'm telling you this, he and they shared a very special connection, as all of us, in some way, I guess all the kids, but they were buddies. And when he died so young, well, in this case, he was in his 50, I guess, but still, it was tragic. It was unexpected. And the fact that you on this very day had a day where you were remembering a loved one, and she was too. I think those kind of connections. I have a friend of mine here in town that refers to that kind of scenario as a God wink. It's almost like
that.
Like, hey, here you go. You thought you were alone today, but let me put two lonely people together. I saw another example of this in the desert in biblical Tamar, people who had recently lost a child, all of which didn't know the other one, and they ended up in the sukkah in the middle of the desert in the wilderness of Zin, and it was just this beautiful moment. I think things like that, and we could all list them, things that have happened in our lives that just couldn't. I mean, what are the chances that, at some point you get beyond circumstance and you just say, this is quite amazing. Like there's an unseen hand orchestrating, not every day, not in every situation, but sometimes it's when we need it the most.
Well, and I have come to the belief that when somebody comes strong in my mind, that I shouldn't just brush it off. I mean, it's for a reason.
Yeah.
And that's why I called your mother.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I hadn't talked to her in years. Well, probably I saw her at maybe one of the conferences in Louisiana several years ago. But I just think that the more we reach out to people, the more of a light that we can be.
Yeah.
And I think, James, you mentioned last night, what was it, Close Encounters of the Third Kind or something like that? Like this mountain that everybody saw and they started having to go to it. They just felt a need. And I think that's how we've become, our little group, like a clarion call. Who knows what put us all together? Who put us all together? I think God did.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, it's fun. One other point on that, and I know that other people may have thoughts too, but we're talking about the last words of Moses. So this is connecting with passing, Moses, the story of Moses passing, and all. I guess we can connect that. But one of the things that I think is interesting, you talk about how we all met. As I look around and see the faces and the names, and, many of us have been friends for a very long time. Some of us are only meeting, but each of us has a story of how I was connected with that person. I know people because I've been publicly teaching in this world for a little while, and I've know other teachers. I know people who met like on a discussion group, and they're now married with children. I mean, you know, people that I've toured Israel with that I remember one story where a man and a woman both came on our tour, and they fell in love and ended up getting married and are still married. And this happened years and years ago. So you know, we see these kind of connections, and not everybody's getting married. We're not connecting. You know, I don't run a service here so if you're single, don't email me and say, hey, find me somebody. That's not what I'm saying happens here. I don't know how to do that. In fact, I've had people say, hey, do you know any guys that are, you know, this age? And I don't, but maybe that's what I need to get into. I'll be a matchmaker. Anyway,
Right.
but even the fact that we all know each other and can call on each other, and sometimes it's just a simple note. Hey, I'm thinking about you today. I hope your day's going well.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. And sometimes it seems like maybe we just meet someone
Yep.
and we just feel drawn to them. I mean, there's several of you in this group that I felt like that towards. I don't know why. It's
Yeah.
just there's just something there, some kind of connection between us. And I think that's a wink from God.
I do too.
So anyway, he puts us together in communities so that we won't be by ourselves.
That's right. And
anyway, Shabbat Shalom during this dark time on the Jewish calendar. But I think for us, we don't have to have it dark in our lives. We can make it light. We can turn it around.
That's right.
So anyway,
in
blah,
fact,
blah, I'm done. I feel like I talked too much.
No, but one more point. In fact, the idea of these dark days between Tammuz the 17th and the 9th of Av,
right?
They're called the, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it Bain HaMetzarim, between the straits, basically.
Between the straits, yeah.
Which is actually a quote from Lamentations, if I'm not mistaken. But there is this idea that from Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz, when the breach was made, up until the 9th of Av, we're dealing with 3 weeks. And what the rabbis have said about this period, you can think what you want about rabbinic literature, and you may not be Jewish, okay. But people notice, especially Jewish sages notice, you know, it's interesting, and it needs to be marked down that this period of time, I'm paraphrasing and translating, but it says that during these days, these 3 weeks, bad things happen time and time again.
Yes.
To the people of Israel. And, you know, if you really think about it, we're talking about the first and second temple are both destroyed. According to tradition, on the 9th of Av, biblically and historically, there might be a day here or there, but the idea is that it's within a 2 or 3 day window. I mean, you ought to be careful during this time, is what they're saying. And many, 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 many other things. So it's important that we keep our friends, our Jewish friends and so forth in our prayers. For whatever reason, this period is to be noted as such. But let me say this, that there are passages in the Hebrew Bible which tend to suggest that all of those days which were dark, to some of the points you made, Betty, will ultimately be seasons of joy. It'll be turned around. It's similar to the stories that we read in, say, the book of Esther, you know, or you think about Haman, and you look at the Maccabees. It's on a day where the enemies of God's people plot their destruction. It's almost, speaking of God winks, like the redemption is to happen on the same day. Like here you are, your face is down because of the tragedies that history has presented to you. But it's on those very days that your head will be lifted to see the redemption of God. So I think that's something to remember. So good to bring it up.
Fasting, you know, according to Jeremiah 8, will be turned into feasts of joy and celebration.
Indeed. That's
you
right.
know what? The fast of the 4th month, the 5th month, the 7th month, and
that's right.
What's the next one? I forget.
I can't remember. We'll post the text in a moment and see if people can read that. But that's the point. It's turn those days of sadness into joy.
Right.
Good stuff, Betty. Thank you, dear.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And here we go. Hello, Sue.
Hey, Shabbat Shalom to all. Thank you for a wonderful lesson today.
Thank you, my friend. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. Couple of things. First of all, thank you for bringing up the point that those days of darkness become days of light. That was one of the things I wanted to say. The other, Hashem created time. We know that he set the Shabbat aside and sees it as a very special time of his creation. Well, I'm a genealogist, and whenever genealogists get together, we always ask one another, what's the special date in your family? For example, in my husband's family, it was February 26th. We have tons of people in his family that were born on that day. In my family, it's December 6th or an April date. And every genealogist will tell you this, that there is a special date in their family that they can trace back literally hundreds of years, where that date will pop up over and over and over again. And what is the significance of that? I don't know, but God does.
Yeah.
And I'll be interested to find out what that significance is one day. But I guess what we should remember is that he is not just the Lord of time, the creator of time.
Yeah.
And he means for us to be using that time according to his purposes.
Amen.
And I had one question for you.
Okay.
This is my ignorance showing once again. You were talking today about ha'avarim. Each time you said it, my brain said the Mount of the Fathers. Is that the actual translation, or is it?
That's a good Hebraic mind at work. That's not ignorance. You're hearing the syllables, but you have to remember you're hearing them through a South Louisiana pronunciation. So, and I'm serious, my Hebrew is flawed. I'll say that. But it's because I've never really, I don't hear it often. But the phrase for abarim, as it's translated in, or transliterated in our Bibles, in Hebrew, it's ayin beit, resh. So it's avar.
Right.
Now, Valentine, I don't want to see you laugh when I say that, but, it's ayin beit resh. So it's avar. It's the root word of what when we talk about a person who is a Hebrew or speaking Hebrew, Hebrew is ivrit. So when one crosses over, so now father is av, aleph beit.
Right.
So, again, the ayin is probably, you hear a native speaker, or certainly an ancient native speaker, it probably didn't sound anything like Ross pronounced it. So, but the idea that I just proposed when I read that, in the English, it's translated Abarim, and you can do a word search on it. And sometimes in the Hebrew, like the geography, when it's talking about the geography of the Exodus, it's Iye, or Iye, I-Y-E dash Abarim. It's a region, but if you look at the Hebrew of this mountain, sometimes it's called Pisgah, sometimes it's referred to as Moses going on to Mount Nebo, but it's always tied, I'll say always, most often tied to the range of Abarim, which I think means a passing crossover point. And this is where the children of Israel cross over. Moses goes up to this mountain, and there he encounters God for the last time, and he dies on the mountain. But it's at the crossing point. Remember, we have the phrase mentioned in Micah chapter 6, verse 5, that we're supposed to remember from Shittim to Gilgal, which is that crossing point, because it's in that crossing area where we learn about the righteousnesses of God. Anyway, long answer. My pronunciation can throw people off, but the Abarim is actually ayin beit resh. with the
Well,
plural
thank
ending.
you very much. And you did explain about the crossing over in the lesson, but I didn't put the two together, so I apologize.
That's okay. No. That's okay. Again, that makes me want to study better and be more clear on my teaching. That's what and I mean this seriously. Anytime I teach, if I say something I don't clarify, it usually comes up in this period here. So I'm glad you asked, because you're probably not the only one that thought, hey, I wonder, good stuff, Sue. You
Well,
probably, I bet you've been there. You've been to Mount Nebo, haven't you?
Yes. Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And you were right. It was very cloudy.
I was going to ask you, since you and your husband lived there, did you ever go where you could see the land like Moses saw it?
No.
Okay.
We only got up to Nebo the one time. We went to the well, which was, to me, that was very special. But yeah, it was very cloudy, but it is a magnificent view despite cloudiness. It's truly beautiful. But you can go anywhere in Jordan or Eastern Israel and feel like this is what they saw.
Oh, I know. I've told you before, I envy that you and your husband of blessed memory lived there. I love Jordan. If I could load up 6 kids and their spouses and 10 grandkids and get them all to move somewhere, I would probably move to Jordan. I mean, it is so beautiful there. I think it's absolutely breathtaking. I like it. Hold your ears. No one get offended here. I like it better than Israel.
Really?
Absolutely.
I have to admit I prefer Israel, but Jordan is breathtaking.
Mm-hmm.
And the people are just precious beyond words.
Yeah.
But my best friend lives in Madaba,
Mm-hmm.
We have friends all over there, and we were very blessed to have been close friends with people that were high up in the government, and so we got to see things that the regular tourist doesn't get to see.
I bet.
And that was just so special. But I'm sorry, I'm yakking, and I need to let other people.
You're yakking about Jordan, though. That's all right. These people are learning. That's good.
If you ever have a chance to go to Petra, you guys go to Petra. It's amazing.
That's right.
Or Wadi Rum, which if you can spend the night in the desert at Wadi Rum, that is beyond amazing.
You betcha. I'll bring them there if they want to go.
There you go.
Thank you, Sue. I appreciate you. We are going to tell our wonderful group on YouTube, Shabbat Shalom, and let them go. We'll see you next time, and thanks for joining us. So Shabbat Shalom. Have a beautiful week.